Hello, you are listening to an archived worship service of First Presbyterian Church, Columbus, Mississippi. Thank you for listening.
Mark's gospel is a pretty short gospel, and in many ways it is meant to be read straight through. We tend to break it up into pieces when we go into sermons and sermon series. The lectionary chops it all up for us. But many times, if you just sit down, Mark's gospel can be read in about 30 minutes. I invite you to do that. Now, if you were to do that, if you were reading Mark's gospel straight through, you would be thinking, okay, the third time's the charm. Because this is Jesus' third time that he is entering the synagogue on the Sabbath. Now, the first two times did not go very well at all. The first time, he meets a demon who starts yelling at him. The second time, he meets religious leaders who start yelling at him. But this is the third time, and it will be different, right? The opposition of those past experiences will surely melt away when he shares the hugs, passes the peace, and sees all the familiar faces he grew up with, all the comforts of home. We would think that. But suddenly, and even surprisingly to Jesus, he is rejected by those who have known him the longest. See, Jesus has traveled all of Galilee, a small region about the size of Lowndes County, really, and he has gathered his disciples. He has performed miracles. He has acquired quite a following in Capernaum, where he has healed the woman sick for 12 years and raised the girl to new life. And now he walks a dozen miles or so to his childhood home. What could go wrong? Surely he would have a hero's welcome, a parade, but it was not to be. The preacher Eugene Peterson, who translated the Message Bible, he might sum it up the best with his translation of the hometown crowd. He says, they ask, who does he think he is, anyway? You can almost hear the crowd scoff. Hey, buddy, we know your mom. Your siblings, yeah, we all grew up together. And by the way, they all think you're kind of nuts. You made that bookcase in my house and the table for dinner with the wobbly leg. Yeah, that was you, right? Who do you think you are? We took Bible classes together. Who do you think you are parading in here, into town, with those disciples behind you like you're someone? All these stories of healings with teachings that are different than what we learned together at synagogue. His presence and his teaching offends them. Or what's better, probably translated, the direct word is scandalized them with his presence. His words were not just different, they were offensive. There would be no reception, no welcome, no hometown newspaper article, no key to the city. There's no honor in Jesus' hometown. The Christian blogger Peter Woods used a great turn of phrase this last week that I couldn't get away from as he discussed the inner workings of the hometown crowd. He says, familiarity breeds contempt because familiarity longs for content. I think the crowd would have celebrated this celebrity son, a hometown boy made good, if he would come back home with a message that they are comfortable with. If he had offered the right amount of platitudes or credited them with cultural superiority, at least better than the lake people over in Galilee. That's not what he did. He even brought outsiders with him, and their smiles dampened when his words confronted and even provoked them, when his message threatened their contentment. They yelled, "Hold on there. Who do you think you are? You can't talk to us like that. We're just fine without your new ideas, without your new friends, and without your new life." Jesus is rejected because the people liked the world the way it was, not the way Jesus told them that it would be. Familiarity longs for content. Jesus was too familiar, and yet now seen as a stranger. They could not and would not change. And Jesus would mourn their lack of faith. It was the witty Presbyterian Mark Twain who once said that the only person who likes change is a wet baby. Well, he never met either of the Bryson boys, because Michael always kicked and Henry always cries when we have to take the diaper off. So I would say Mark Twain is wrong, that no one likes change when they're content. But maybe when the world is dark or cool or confusing, when change sparks the only glimmer of hope, okay, maybe somebody likes change. Or maybe when life is so painful and so despairing that change might not be fun or easy, but it is the only way out of the mud. Maybe there's somebody that likes change. Maybe there are moments that we can hear words of radical change from Jesus and not be offended and not be scared and not scoffed like the hometown crowd. But they're not when we are comfortable and content. Maybe there are moments we can hear Jesus' message of newness, of life and hope, and not be scared off and ask, "Who do you think you are?" But they're not when we've grown lazy with our understanding of who he was to us years ago, when we were comfortable, when we were content. And suddenly Christ's message sounds scandalous, even offensive to those of us that treat his presence in our lives as a traveler we used to know long ago in our childhood. Yesterday we celebrated independence, remembering our declaration as a country, and what an amazing thing that is. And a rare thing in the course of human history, and rarer still that the acknowledgement of all people created equal, endowed by God alone with life and liberty and pursuit of happiness. We often forget how scandalous those words seemed to a world full of monarchies and theocracies. We've grown comfortable in a lot of ways in the statements, forgetting how disruptive they were in a world or even a town that just wants to be content. We forget that the authors and the signers risked much more than rejection in the lands from which they came, their childhood homes, or maybe that of their parents and grandparents. But those early fathers of our country saw the gospel Jesus preached, a radical change, and they echoed that fierce devotion to dignity and hope that brings us out of the contentment of the moment and into a struggle and even danger. Follow Jesus will lead us to struggle and even danger. Jesus' message of liberating love and radical hope and deliberate grace can seem foreign and even scandalous to us today because it confronts our fears and anxieties about who God is and what God is like. Christ's words of true freedom will inevitably confront and conflict with our own limits and scope, even in the places where we should know Him best, the church. Today, let us learn a lesson from Nazareth. When Christ proclaims good news for all people, let us never snap back, "Who do you think you are?" Let Christ never mourn our lack of faith. But let us, more than ever, marvel at the works of His hand that continue to surround us, even when we are troubled, and even when we are content. Amen.